My fellow Jews, we need to talk. And heads up, this will be necessarily uncomfortable for us both. The discourse on Zionism and the escalation between Israel and Palestine has completely devolved into identity politics and vitriol. Now, I'm not trying to center Jews per se, but the reality is when Jews come together and stand up for the rights of others, the world takes notice. So where we stand on this issue is very important. And we seem to be standing on two very opposite sides of the spectrum. Now, I'm worried that this situation is going to devolve further in the coming weeks and months, involving surrounding nations, potentially starting a much larger war. So at this juncture, I am urgently reaching out to my Zionist friends, family, and followers, and I hope you'll listen with your heart open. Now, I'm aware that many self-identifying Zionists believe that Jewishness and Zionism are one and the same. And I agree with you to the extent that this is the common perception. I'm also aware that many self-identifying Zionists define Zionism as self-determination for a Jewish homeland. And often the definition stops there. For me, this definition necessarily expands to at the expense of Palestinian citizens. And this is where I draw a very hard line, because to accept the former without the latter requires a large amount of dissonance. Now, you may be thinking, I'm an American Jew. What's it got to do with me? Why is it important that we consider our position on Zionism? In the world's eye, Israel is a Jewish state because it's declared itself as such. And we know with a great deal of recorded evidence that the Israeli government has been oppressing Palestinians all this time. And here's the important part. While hiding behind the shield of Judaism and the Shoah, using it as both its defense and its sword. This is so incredibly infuriating and offensive. But do you know what I find more infuriating and offensive? Genocide, murder, pain, suffering, no matter who does it, no matter who receives it. We should at least agree on that. Israel, the country which claims to be of and for the Jewish people, is by the numbers inflicting more harm, more death, more destruction onto the Palestinian people than Hamas ever did to Israel. Hamas is a terrorist organization, yes, and the Israeli government is an oppressive totalitarian regime holding far more power over money, resources, and narrative. If you're an American Jew, it's relevant that our military and our president is providing millions in funding to Israel so it can bring more might, fury, and more slaughter to innocent Palestinians. They aren't targeting Hamas, despite having the intelligence and resources to do so. They are leveling cities and bombing civilians indiscriminately. Now, if you disagree, I would be open to seeing any evidence you have of measured, precise attacks. But that's not what I've been seeing. Please don't scroll me away because these words hurt you to hear. If you're as uncomfortable as I am right now, you need to hear this so that we can grow. This is being done in our name. It's a disgrace to Jewish identity. It should offend you deeply, right down to your heart. Even if it's not you and I doing it, personally. Even if you have not previously defined Zionism this way, this is in fact what Zionism accomplishes. Zionism hasn't been about Jews having a homeland for some time. We have a homeland. Nobody's taking that away. For fuck's sake, Israel is backed by the U.S. military. It doesn't need to harm innocent civilians to exist, but it does, and it is, and it's using our good name to do it, and calling that Zionism. And they've been working hard a very long time to convince you and the world that Zionism and Jewishness are one and the same, thereby tethering your identity, your very being to their actions, no matter how awful they become. And if you've fallen for their absolutism, to decry their actions, well, that could feel like betraying yourself. Have you heard of cognitive dissonance? It's an ego defense we all use to reduce the discomfort we experience when our behavior or our expressed beliefs are at odds with our self-concept. And most humans will go to great lengths to reduce this discomfort. For example, pretending the threat to our belief doesn't exist. Distracting from the threat to our belief, commonly accomplished with whataboutism. Justifying the belief, Perhaps the violence is necessary retribution for an offense, or even to prevent a future offense, or we reframe the threat to our identity as for the greater good. And lastly, the one you're likely experiencing now, toward me. Discredit the source. Any direct threats to your belief can be simply dismissed as anti-Semitic. Use of this word against our own. I can't begin to tell you how upsetting that is. This should immediately feel manipulative as it leaves your mouth. Alarms should go off. Understand that this last strategy is a tool used inappropriately by Israeli and the United States authorities to protect their actions from any scrutiny at all. If this label is used in this way, it loses its power when needed for its intended purpose, ironically worsening the potency of real anti-Semitism. Being anti-Zionist isn't anti-Semitic. When you make this claim, you use the entirety of the Jewish diaspora as human shields. It reduces our existence, everything it means to be Jewish, all of us, every Mizrahi and Sephardi and Ashkenaz, every black, brown, Asian, mixed race Jew, every one of us standing together as one on Mount Zion, everything we have survived and rebuilt and carried on through generations, Kenachora, it reduces us to a fucking MAGA hat. This misuse brands anti-Semitism as a phrase that can't be taken seriously. In the world's eye, we become a bunch of white people crying wolf while simultaneously harming others. If this isn't how you wish to be seen, ask yourself how this has come to pass. Is this really consistent with who you consider yourself to be? And why are right-wing American politicians parenting the same talking points? Who benefits here and who loses? If the global Jewish diaspora has anyone to blame for the rise of anti-Semitism and renewed fear of living in a non-Jewish society, as, by the way, we've successfully done for thousands of years, it is the Israeli government. It's Bibi and his butthole friends. Their actions are, in fact, antithetical to Jewish teachings and everything it means to be Jewish. There is no tikkun olam, no tzedakah in their actions or their messaging. There's only greed, power, and hate. Tell me, where is that in the Torah? They don't care about what it means to be a Jew, but you should. We can't undo the damage that's been done, but we can change our minds at any time. That's the beauty of freedom. Of anybody, we should know how precious and fragile that beauty is. The most Jewish thing to do is the tzedakah of protecting the freedoms of others and openly rejecting anything that benefits Jews at the expense of others, even and especially if it means you have to reject Zionism.